This lesson is on using the Pythagorean Theorem. So the Pythagorean Theorem is only used in a right triangle, so right triangles only. If you don't have a right triangle, you'll have to use a different method. And the Pythagorean Theorem says that the measure of the leg squared and the measure of this leg squared, if I find the sum of those, it equals the hypotenuse squared. So you might have seen a squared plus b squared equals c squared in the past. This is a perfectly fine way to write the Pythagorean Theorem. The reason that I wrote it leg squared plus leg squared equals hypotenuse squared is because some people forget that this always has to be the hypotenuse. So c, which is the longest side, the hypotenuse, has to be the value of c. So I couldn't say c squared plus b squared equals a squared. It would not work out. Let's try a couple. So for my first one, I've got the measure of the two legs. The two that make the 90-degree angle always have to be a and b. So I'm going to say 5 squared plus 12 squared equals c squared. I'll square 5 to get 25. Remember, that's 5 times 5, not 5 times 2. 12 squared would be 144, and I can't really do anything with c squared yet. 25 and 144, the sum is 169. And now I need to know, I know that c squared is 169. I need to know what c is, so I'm going to take the square root of each side. The square root of c squared is c, and the square root of 169 is 13. So I know the measure of c is 13. For my next example, notice that I have the measure of c, but I don't have the measure of a. So I'm going to say a squared plus 3 squared equals 5 squared. 3 squared is 9, so a squared plus 9 equals 5 squared is 25. In this case, I'll have to subtract that 9 so that I have a squared equals 16, and just as I did over here, now I'm going to take the square root to get that a is 4. So a is 4 feet, c was 13 inches. And this is more of an application question of the Pythagorean Theorem. So you're swimming across the river, and the current carries you 400 feet from your starting point, and the river is 300 feet wide. How far did you swim? So let's take a look at what that might look like. So you have a river, okay, and you've got you. Here's where you started. You're trying to swim straight across the river, and straight across the river is 300 feet. But the river carries me 400 feet this way, because that's 400 feet from the starting point. And now I need to know what is the distance that I swam. So obviously I had to swim sort of crooked. I want to know what that distance is. So to do that, I would take 300 squared plus, because obviously this is a right angle, plus 400 squared equals x squared. 300 squared is 90,000. 400 squared, 160,000. So total, I have 250,000. And if I take the square root of each side, I get 500 feet. So I swam, or you, I guess you swam, 500 feet total. Here are 2 questions for you to try on your own, so try them both and press play to see how you did. For my first question, I'm just trying to find the missing side length. Again, here's my right angle, so I'm going to take 8 squared plus b squared equals 10 squared. 8 squared is 64. 10 squared is 100. If I subtract 64 from each side, I get 36. And then I take the square root to find that b is 6. So b is 6 feet. For my second example, I have the height of a building rounded to the nearest tenth of a foot. If I have a 20-foot ladder leaned up against the side of a building with the base of the ladder 4 feet from the building. So here's my building. Yep, I am an artist. You're welcome. And we don't know the height of that building. But what I do know is I have a 20-foot ladder that reaches the top of the building, and the distance that ladder is from the side is 4 feet. So here's how I would set up my question. Again, that would be 4 squared plus x squared equals 20 squared. 4 squared is 16. 20 squared is 400. I subtract the 16 from each side. And then I would take a calculator to find the square root of 384. And the square root is 19.5959, etc., etc. And I need to find that to the nearest tenth of a foot. And so I would say the building is 19.6 feet tall.